Zach in Woodinville, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show, AM 770 KTTH. Go for it, Zach.
Yeah, I note the kind of mocking tone you use when you say evolving standards of morality, and that when you read the Constitution, it hasn't changed. But standards of morality have changed since the Constitution was written.
I agree, Zach. No, I think you're misreading my my tone for my text.
Finish.
Well, you're misreading. First, let me explain what I'm saying, and then I'm happy to let you speak as long as you want.
Point.
Zach, you're mischaracterizing my point of view. Of course, standards of morality have evolved. The point I was making is that the Constitution does not evolve, and the Constitution is not about striking down or upholding certain standards of morality. The Constitution is about a legal system. So, if you want to evolve the standards of morality, you do it exactly the way that many states have now done it. You actually have referenda or legislative acts passed to push same-sex marriage. You don't use the Constitution as an excuse. Now, go ahead.
I think there are plenty of examples in American history where had we waited for the quote-unquote will of the people, then several rights which we take for granted today and several rights having to do with marriage that we take for granted today would not have happened. So I disagree. The ability for people of different color to marry.
Loving versus Virginia did not suggest that all across the country, by the way, interracial marriage was legal. Okay, Loving versus Virginia, the idea that states could regulate interracial marriage. First of all, the Constitution never says that you can have discriminatory standards based on race, right? The 14th Amendment explicitly bars that. So that's not a matter of the standard of morality changing. That's a matter of the Supreme Court actually reading the text of the Constitution. The 14th Amendment is quite clear. You can't have two standards for two different races under the Equal Protection Clause.
Well, I think
so that's a very different story.
I'll name a couple other examples. I mean, the ability of women to vote, the ability of blacks to vote. None of these.
The ability of women and blacks to vote are both amendments to the Constitution, Zach. They were not in the original Constitution, nor were they foisted on the American people by the Constitution.
Exactly. But you're missing my larger point, which is standards of morality evolved, and they should. And I thank God that we don't live with the standards of morality that we had 250 years ago, were I, for example, a black woman. So I just take the issue with this mocking tone of, well, standards of morality evolved, the left thinks. They do, and they should.
Okay, Zach, some standards of morality do evolve, and some standards of morality don't. The nature of men and women have not changed over time. The nature of racial equality has not changed over time. We're right now about racial equality. In many ways, we're wrong now about the relations between the sexes. But beyond that, the point is this. When I'm talking about the Supreme Court, from a legal point of view, the Supreme Court are not the great arbiters of morality in society. The Supreme Court are tasked with determining whether the legislature has subverted the Constitution of the United States or overcome its constitutional boundaries. That is not their job. They don't get to sit there and be a super legislature as to, well, I believe the standards of morality have changed, therefore I get to completely override what a legislature thinks because I just disagree with the legislature. That's the point I was making.
Well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree on that one then. Now, with your, girls might fall in love with their dads, the old slippery slope
It's not a slippery slope argument. It's not a slippery slope argument. No, it is not. A slippery slope argument, technically, is that one thing will lead to... Zach, you can't just say things that are factually incorrect, and then when I correct you, say that you want to finish your point, okay?
Your whole show is about interrupting and overriding.
No, Zach, it is not. I've let you speak plenty.
You're doing it now.
Zach? I'm happy to let you speak as soon as I correct the mistake. It's not a slippery slope argument. It's a principle argument. There is a difference from a logical point of view. You can hang up. That's fine. A slippery slope argument is an argument where I argue that one thing will lead to another. A principle argument is an argument where I say that two separate acts fall under the same principle. If the principle is consent and love, then same-sex marriage and incest fall under the same principle because both can have consent and love. Okay, that's not a slippery slope argument. A slippery slope argument is same-sex marriage will lead to cats and dogs living together in the end of the world. That's a slippery slope argument. I didn't make a slippery slope argument. I made a direct principle argument, and it is inarguable. And I'm sad that Zach couldn't stick around to actually answer that point, but that's how conversations work.